Welcome, everyone, those of you here in the room and those of you online, to Unlocking Investments to deliver equitable, nature-based solutions for a green, healthy, and resilient future. We are going to start with a brief video, and then we will hear from our speakers.
Dear audience and panelists, it is my honor to deliver the opening remarks for this important side event in the EU Pavilion. I would like to thank the FAO, Korea Forest Service, WCS, and the Forest for Climate and People project for their fruitful cooperation with the EU. It is crucial that we recognize the connections between biodiversity loss, climate change, and human well-being. We will not achieve our climate goals by 2030 without addressing biodiversity loss and poverty. To this end, nature-based solutions are highly cost-effective tools. They deliver multiple benefits: biodiversity protection, climate change mitigation, food security, sustainable land use, and disaster risk reduction. The creation of nature-based solutions also provides a great avenue to include and learn from indigenous people and local communities. I'd like to share one example of our work. We recently started a project in the 5 great forests of Central America. We will support the conservation efforts of indigenous people by transforming agriculture and food systems, by creating forest-based income streams, by protecting ecosystems, and by contributing to eliminating illegal cattle ranching. Both people and planet are central to this project. This is a way forward that we hope will inform other initiatives. It is important to stress that nature-based solutions and sustainable landscape approach are at the heart of the European Green Deal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roudet. I'm Sandy Andelman from the Wildlife Conservation Society, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon or this morning. I just would like to remind our speakers, each of you will have 5 minutes, and because time is short, we'll be very strict on the time. And then at the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So our first speaker will be Mr. Yoon-Sik Park. He's Secretary General of the 15th World Forestry Congress Secretariat in the Republic of Korea, and it's an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yoon-Sik Park. I'm a Director General of International Affairs Bureau, and I'm also working for the 15th World Forestry Congress Secretariat as a Secretary General. Despite of this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we are all gathered here to halt climate change and seek a breakthrough for building back better. As you are well aware, in this COP, we have we have seen many times, including the World Leaders Summit, the role and the value of the forest have always been at the core of the discussions to tackle the climate crisis. Today, deepening the ambitions and reviewing the key challenges, we all discuss the new and innovative approaches to financial policies and investment towards sustainable forest, agriculture, and land use management. I believe today's discussion will suggest a dynamic and effective and equitable way to deliver a nature-based solution. As the Secretary General of the 15th World Forestry Congress, I would like to suggest developing today's discussions further at the World Forestry Congress next year. Under the main theme, the building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forest, the 15th World Forest Congress will emphasize the importance of reversing the forest laws and the role of forest in addressing the global environmental crisis, including the climate change and biodiversity loss. Also, We will focus on the forest financing from government and private sector investment at the high-level dialogues and the ministerial forum during the Congress. I believe that the World Forest Congress can serve as a great platform to share and encourage the ambitious ideas which have been presented today. I hope that all the discussions today can reach to a quantum shift in financing forest actions while building up momentum for World Forest Congress taking place in Seoul next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Now we're going to turn to Mr. Pascal Martinez. He's the Senior Climate Change Specialist with the Global Environment Facility, and he is going to be talking to us about supporting the protection of forests for multiple benefits for Jeff 8 and beyond. So, Pascal.
Thank you very much. Thank you first for the invitation. It's very important for us to be here also because it's a key issue, and especially for the GEF. The GEF is a financial mechanism of the 3 Rio Conventions. So per definition, the GEF is trying to deliver nature-based solutions as a key objective. And as it is delivering benefits, multiple benefits, as the Ambassador Rouget was saying at the beginning, as it is delivering multiple benefits, it delivers these benefits along these Rio Conventions, so climate change, biodiversity, and land degradation. And since the last, maybe the last decade, more or less, the GEF has moved more and more towards an integrated approach. And this means that it's not only integrated at a national level, putting together all the different stakeholders and sectors, but also delivering multiple benefits through the same kind of project. One project in forestry, we all know that, no? If you do something good for the biodiversity carbon is very much related. So you will provide carbon benefits too. And if you protect the forest for carbon benefits, you will protect the biodiversity also. So Jeff, from the very beginning, is very well positioned to deliver these multiple benefits and nature-based solutions. So Jeff also is a very important global partnership. 183 countries are members of the Jeff. 18 agencies, specialized agencies of the UN, but also regional banks, regional development banks. The World Bank. So we have key global stakeholders that help us implement on the ground our project. So you have this global partnership of all the developing countries and developed countries. And then we have specialized partners that help us on the ground and with the national government and the countries and the civil society to implement this project. And then we are now at a critical moment, I would say, because we all know the crisis that we live, the fact that we don't have much time now to think more. We have to move forward and act. And the GEF is financed through a 4-year cycle. We are now in a replenishment period. So this will be very important, what will be our next strategy for the next coming years from 2022 to 2026. And in this new strategy, we have important set of programs that are interrelated and complementary. And one of them is focused on primary forest. Why? Because it is the low-hanging fruit. It is where you have the carbon, where you have the most important biodiversity. And sometimes we don't focus so much on this forest because they are there. They are intact. They are primary forest. But they are disappearing. So this will be a key program for the next period of the GEF. And And to achieve this goal of protecting the forest, we have key elements in our strategy. One is the institutional reform, because if you don't change the reforms that created the problems, you will not solve the problem. Because we tend to think through sectors, and because there's this lack of integration in addressing problems at landscape level, we don't solve the problem. So it's very important to put all the different stakeholders in a landscape approach to work together and try to reconcile and organize the activities in a landscape. There is also this market failure. The world is investing 140 times more or less, money in activities that destroy forest than in money to protect forest. So that there is a problem here. We don't recognize the price of nature. Our CEO tend to use this example of to save 1 ton of carbon in his country, Costa Rica, it costs $17. You cannot pay $5 to the person that are in charge to protect the forest to keep this carbon. So there is a market failure that's important. And I will not be so long because the time is short. And also there is something crucial in the next strategy is the role and the importance of the indigenous people and local communities. Because it's well known that they are the guardians of the forest and the nature. And we all know that we don't have safe nature without safe people. So, and vice versa. So it's very important to work with these communities that are on the field, in the forest, or depending on the forest. And this goes through the land rights and the empowerment of this community. So these are key elements of how we will try to move forward. So the next replenishment of the GEF is very important. And I'm ready to answer any question that you may have afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Ms. Meta Wilkie. She is the director of the Forestry Division of the Food and Agriculture Organization. And I believe this will be an online presentation.
Absolutely. Honorable Minister of Environment, Sustainable Development of Madagascar, and Honorable Minister of Environment, Republic of Rwanda, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you here today, albeit in the virtual mode. Nature-based solutions is an umbrella concept that covers a broad range of measures that conserve, manage, and restore nature in ways that help address societal challenges. It helps empower people and provide jobs and livelihoods, and it helps provide business opportunities. They are based on the principle that healthy ecosystems deliver multiple benefits, goods, and services, and through these contribute substantially to achieving the goals of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. It's estimated that nature-based solution can provide about 15 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. That's 30% of the global mitigation that's needed by 2050 to stay below the 1.5 degree increase in temperature. Furthermore, they have the ability to catalyze low carbon economic growth, generate green jobs, deliver healthy investment returns, and maintain and enhance the availability of natural resources. So it's absolutely no surprise that the call for such solutions has grown since COVID-19 caused health and economic challenges across the globe. They're being adopted by governments and international organizations to frame actions to protect, manage, and restore ecosystems, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, conserve biodiversity, and generate human welfare benefits. Covering almost 1/3 of the planet's land area, forests can deliver important economic, social, and environmental benefits at all levels, if managed sustainably. As I'm sure you've all heard here at COP26, governments, small and large-scale investors, and development banks are increasingly realizing this. And this is because forests are the most biologically diverse ecosystems on land. They house more than 80% of terrestrial species of plants and animals. They contribute significantly to the livelihoods and well-being of indigenous people and local communities by providing food, shelter, and livelihoods for hundreds of millions of people. And at the global level, as you know, they mitigate climate change. Together with mountain ecosystems, they actually provide more than 75% of the renewable water supply worldwide, and they support agricultural production through the multiple ecosystem services that they provide. So investment in forest and forestry can help achieve international goals and objectives, including those contained in the 2030 Agenda. But to do so, it is important, it's essential actually, that we understand and support the very wide range of reasons to invest in forests at a range of scales. It can be for the sustainable production and consumption of forest products, to mitigate or adapt to climate change, to safeguard nature and biodiversity, restore ecosystems, provide sustainable livelihoods, and many more objectives. But investing in forests and forestry represent an investment in people and their livelihoods, especially the rural poor, youth, and women. Because more than 1 billion people currently depend on forest foods. That includes more than 2,000 indigenous cultures. And 2.4 billion people, that's a third of the global population, depend on fuelwood and charcoal for energy. We must recognize that our actions in forest will affect people, those who depend on them, both directly and indirectly. And we must ensure that projects and programs that are developed in that sector are inclusive. So we need to transform our thinking and our action to consider both the environmental and the social implications of our actions as individuals, as governments, or as investors. Time is running out for climate, biodiversity, and forest. We have a crucial window of opportunity to put transformative actions in place, to scale up actions to heal our planet and protect humanity. We're all hopeful that COP26 will make a huge step in this direction, as we have seen with the declaration that came out on Tuesday, and we hope that these will be followed by many others. In May next year, the global forest community will meet in Seoul, Korea, for the 15th World Forestry Congress. Under the theme of building a green, healthy, and resilient future with forests, Congress will offer a unique opportunity for the global forest community to consider the outcomes of major international processes and instruments from a very specific forest perspective, and to come up with recommendations for concrete and actionable solutions to unlock the full potential of forest in support of sustainable development. Needless to say that advances in nature-based solutions and the related finance and investment opportunity will form a crucial part of these discussions. So we hope to see you all taking part in the Congress and its deliberations. Just to conclude, 2020 was billed to be the super year for nature. This was overshadowed by the pandemic. 2022 is shaping up to be the new super year for nature and the planet and its people. FAO looks forward to continue supporting the growing global efforts that will help us achieve the goals agreed under the Sustainable Development and Environment agendas. Thank you very much for listening.
So we're honored now to hear from the Honorable Minister of Environment and Natural Resources from Madagascar, and she is going to talk to us about reforming policy to deliver effective and equitable forest management for nature-based solutions.
Thank you very much for inviting Madagascar to this. Madagascar, first of all, is one of the richest countries in biodiversity, and it is also affected by climate change issue. It is a country which has three fronts: very vulnerable apart from biodiversity and climate change. And it has been said that several times that biodiversity and climate change are one piece. Madagascar is also one of the countries which is one of the solidarity because it contributes to reduction of greenhouse effect gases, but it is also at the heart of 30-30 strategy, and 5% of world biodiversity is in Madagascar. Mangroves also. The necessity to change policy is obvious for Madagascar because it is one of its commitments to treble the biodiversity and to make of its biodiversity source of development. And it appears that the local communities are very important. We have decided in this reform to put side by side environmental justice and social justice. We have to know that in Madagascar, we still have 90% of the population who depend on natural resources. And there is a conflict of interest which arrived, and these solutions based on nature have to be integrated in a logic of social justice. How create benefits for this? How give room to communities? No later than just before coming to Glasgow, I visited a village with the British Embassy and the European ambassadors to these communities, because Madagascar has a very wide range of bioprotected areas, enabling the surface areas. So the main concern of the community is to have subsistence activities, and forest allows them this activity. And how in this situation can we give more room to these activities which meet to the needs of the communities? During this visit, it was also a question of value chain and integrate fundamental within the policy. So first of all, we have to integrate social fair in the project of conservation, and NGOs and partners, technical and financial partners are invited to integrate this social safeguard, depending mostly on the forest. And the forest has an important role in this climate world solidarity. Besides, the state has also signed its first contract in this issue of carbon sequestration. And they put our effort in this world community, which needs a model. And this policy must also integrate social justice so that the population can be remunerated in a fair way and in an equitable way in order to ensure this equitable distribution related to carbon. And to close, but anyway, I have the opportunity to answer your questions. Then we are going to view a film which stresses this, highlights the importance of adequate funding, less developed countries, and lesson learned about building the capacity of local communities in NBS initiatives. So I invite you to view the film.
Therefore, people living all over the world are discussing how to conserve these forests. But the voices of local people, those most affected, are seldom heard.
Ny androtoko fiainanay zany aloha amin'izao fotoana dia mbola miankina amin'ny atiala io zany ny fiainana, ny loharano aminaovana velotena anaty ala, ny trano honenanay dia anaty ala.
Kanefa rehefa mba mipetaka toy ny fiarovana tony dia lasa tery le finanana.
Misy le tombotsoa kely.
Izay va ampovoany amin'ny atiala mihitsy, tsisy olona mahita an'izay ninina zany fa izay mahita ny mivoakatsy miditra ao.
Ny mpamatsy vola moa amin'ny sehatry iraisam-pirenena koa dia tokony hoe hijery ety amin'ny fotony mihitsy mba tsinjovina ihany ny ety amin'ny fotony hoe mba hatraiza sakafo ivelomany reto raha ohatra ka natao hiaro aly izy dia mino aho fa sambo mbola azo arovana tsara raha isisa tavelany anaty ala iny.
Raha misoratra aminay io tany io a mariska izahay ny asa ary mariska izahay ny karakara sy kolokolo an'ilay tany. Fa ny zava-misy ange rehefa tsy voafaritra aminay ara-panjakana io tany io dia mifindrafindra ohatrany hoe mitady tany malemy andrenam-pangady izahay satria mahatsaro tena tsy tompony.
Tena miala ninona mihitsy zay mamboly zanak'azy. Tena marisy lahatra na mihitsy le miara-miasa amin'ireo mpiaro ala.
For tropical forests to fulfill their potential in contributing to the fight against climate change, lessons need to be learned about truly involving and empowering local people.
Thank you. And we have one more speaker, and that is Mr. Faustin Munyazikwiye, who is Deputy Director General of the Rwanda Environmental Management Authority. And he is going to talk about building resilience of vulnerable communities in Rwanda's Congo-Nile Divide to climate variability through forest restoration.
Thank you very much, moderator, for giving me the floor. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon, depending to where you are. Some of participants are following online. On behalf of Minister of Environment from Rwanda, I would like to thank, first of all, the organizers for convening this important event, and also for inviting Rwanda to share its experience in building resilience of vulnerable communities. Rwanda has put people and nature at the center of its development. Rwanda has committed to restore 2 million hectares of degraded land through Bond Challenge. And we are glad to testify that now we are halfway with that target. Indeed, through our development planning, some previous decades, we committed to have at least 30% of forest cover by 2020. And I'm glad to inform the audience that in 2019, that's when we completed the target, and we had 30.4% of forest cover for the whole country. So this is a great achievement, not only for building resilience of our people, but also increasing the carbon sequestration in the country. Indeed, as Pascal said, Jeff also participated and funded some of the projects in Rwanda. Through Jeff 6, we managed to restore and establish the fourth biggest nature reserve, which is Mukuragishwati Park. And now it has been registered as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. So this is a great achievement for us, which has been done in the name of protecting the nature. Indeed, apart from those achievements, we are still having some challenges, mainly due to the high population density of Rwanda, which is 416 population per square kilometer. You can understand that high population density, it has a tremendous impact on our forests and on the environment in general. Specifically for forests, we are using biomass. Now we are at 79% using biomass for cooking. That's one of the challenge of our forests, but we have a target of at least reducing up to 50% by 2024, and we are on track. So this is one of the challenge, but good enough. We have some various partners. We are glad to work with WCS. We have been working with WCS since decades. They supported some of the activities, including restoration and conservation of our largest forest reserve, which is Nyungwe National Park. And they have been continuously supporting Rwanda. We are now in June 2021, the Ministry of Environment and WCS embarked on the development of a program aimed to build resilience of vulnerable communities to climate vulnerability in Rwanda's Congo-Nile divide through forest landscape restoration that will be submitted to Green Climate Fund and targeting the 32nd board meeting. But that program, which have been developed, has three main components. The first one is mainstreaming climate adaptation into integrated land use planning. Land use, the cornerstone of managing our natural resource. We have adopted the National Land Use Master Plan last year, and this will be a good time to a mainstream adaptation through land use. The second component is on forest landscape management and restoration, as we are pushing forward the agenda of forest restoration. We need this project to affirm and walk the talk. The government of Rwanda remain committed to putting people at the center of its development, and Rwanda welcome related investment for inclusive and sustainable growth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for those talks. And I think with the announcements we heard yesterday, the commitments, and we've heard now from, from Latin America, from Korea, Madagascar, and from Rwanda, where forest conservation is central not only to climate solutions, but to livelihoods. So we have heard about finance yesterday, and from Pascal. Just before this, I was in an interesting session in the Jeff Pavilion on the High Ambition Coalition, where a representative of indigenous communities said these pledges are welcome, they're fantastic, but the thing is, she wants to see not just the pledges, but she wants to see the cash on the table. And to be honest, she doesn't want to see, a set of activities and reports and that indigenous communities have to go through in order to access these funds to protect their forest and their livelihoods. And so in our questions and answers, we'll have questions from the audience that will appear on Slido, but I wonder whether we could hear from some of our speakers, and particularly from Pascal, because I think this is a challenging question about how can we unlock financing for and deliver funding to local communities in a way that's feasible for them.
Yeah, it's a great question, because we would have the solution, it would not be a question. No, actually, this is why I mentioned specifically the attention that we will have increasingly on local people and indigenous communities. We already had it, but I think it will be more and more. Because we need effectively that all these commitments land in the ground to the local communities. And for that, many different conditions need to be there. That's why I mentioned the land rights. It's crucial. Also, the capacity to make the link with where the resources coming from. I mean, capacity building in terms of project, because the ones who work for the development and who has resources needs project on the ground. And you cannot. We had a very interesting event at the very beginning on Monday morning with the indigenous people at the Jeff Pavilion, and one of the leaders said, "We don't want 1 million. We don't know what to do with 1 million. $50,000, $30,000, or $10,000, because 1 million." And he was referring a project that they received from an agency, development agency, and at the end of the project cycle, 50-something or 60% of the money was still there without being spent, because I don't know. So you need really this link, I think, between those who want to promote the protection of forest on the ground with the local people and the local people itself. So it means policy reforms. It means also policy coherence, which is also very important. I didn't mention all the strategy for the JEF because there are many different aspects, but policy coherence also is very important. And also this kind of stakeholders that can make the link on project level between the two levels, two layers on the ground, and also who propose activities and resources. Thank you.
Yes, can we have one question? We had a question from the audience, and then we'll go to Slido. Yes.
Okay, so
can you speak up and I'll
I'm Romy, and I'm heading the Sustainability Commission for the private sector in Madagascar. And I'm very happy to hear that as from 2022, there's a new integrated approach from JEF, actually giving the priority to indigenous people. 92% of the population in Madagascar still live with the forest. And we know that in Madagascar, the government or the government institution cannot work alone. And we're very keen to work together, part of the private sector. So my question is quite broad. I'd like to know to what extent JEF is planning to integrate the private sector among the stakeholders involved in supporting those kind of projects, because private sector can sometimes be the bridge between a big project and the realization on the ground. And more broadly, I think my question can also target Korea and Rwanda, because I believe you guys work with private sector in your country. So we'd like to know a little bit more, understand how you collaborate with private sector and to what extent can it be efficient. Thank you.
Okay, who speak first? Maybe I spoke before. I will then speak after you, no, because the question was also for the others. As you prefer, moderator.
Yes, let's hear from Korea and Rwanda.
Yeah, I will be the first. So, a little bit difficult question, because there are so many ways to bring all stakeholders together. So I'd like to share some Korea's case. So a long time ago, we have a similar situation in now in developing countries. So right after the Korean War, the whole Korean Peninsula was denuded, maybe more than 1 million hectares. So, but during the 3 decades, we restored all denuded forest. Maybe this is a remarkable achievement, I believe. So, and at the time, the government didn't have any enough power, the personnel to restore the whole denuded area. So at the time, the government introduced the invite the local people, and then they government provided some kind of the training, capacity building programs, and then give them some materials, just like seedlings and fertilizers, and then so government facilitate the people needs to restore the forest because the people can get the many product from the forest, maybe including the timbers and many non-timber forest product. So people well recognize how much the forest is important. Yesterday I watched the one lady from the indigenous groups, and then they said, we are the PhD people, not in the field. So they have a knowledge, they have a experience. So it's exactly the same in Korea. So government decide to invite the people, not alone the government. So maybe in this series, maybe I think the government needs to respect the local peoples, but that's not easy. So the local people's voice, sometimes it's very different from the situation. So government give them some kind of the opportunity to engage in the national project. So in Korea's case, I'd like to share just one example. Government provides some guidelines, and then people living in the village making a small the community structure to engage in this project. This is my answer to your question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bastien?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the good question. How are we involving private sector in the landscape restoration and forests in general? We tried to, government of Rwanda planted forest since time immemorial during the colonial period. But at the end of the day, we realized that the government itself and the decentralized entities are not in the position to manage well, sustainably, the resources. So the government of Rwanda took decision to privatize all the forests belonging to the government, and we have a target of privatizing 100% of all the forests by 2024 at the end of the national strategy for transformation. And we are halfway. So the main reason of privatizing is first to make sure that we are involving private sector at the center of bringing solution. Second, it's, we are looking at the sustainability in the management of the forests. Some of the forests are being harvested, but the efforts of restoring and planting more trees, we see it more relevant from private sector who is making business out of the trees rather than an officer sitting in the government office just going to do the monitoring. So that's, it worked and it is still working. And indeed, Rwanda established a national green fund, which is known as Fund for Environment and Climate Change. And it has an attractive component for private sector, which is a private sector facility. We are now working hand in hand with the Green Climate Fund so that we can enlarge the facility so that people can at least access that. Indeed, they have also, through the Green Climate Fund, we have also a program of incubator and accelerator program. When we started privatization, we realized that only big companies are getting those tenders. But how about young people who have innovations? So the accelerator and incubator program through our Green Fund is helping young innovators who have ideas, who have small companies, also to access funds and realize their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. let's see what other questions we have on Slido. Minister, so what are your biggest objectives here in Glasgow? What will make this a success for you?
Alors, nous sommes venus à Glasgow pour
We've come to Glasgow, first of all, to say that Madagascar, despite the situation, well, hard economic difficulties at the heart of climate change. When we talk of a 30-30 strategy, we are not it's not in a political declaration, but it is really for Madagascar biodiversity. We signed the Red Plus Convention, and we need this funding dating back for the COP21 because Madagascar, the government is using means for that, but the means are not sufficient. And we 30% of climate change fund, and I think Madagascar is at 0.0001%. So we will work for it. So we could say that on the other hand, there is a climate accountability. Madagascar is the process of living in a very hard situation with in the deep south, where there is a chronic drought, famine, and provisions are not good. And if the 3/4 of Madagascar will be in a very bad situation. So we are really expecting that the gap is put on the table, not just promises, but translated into actions. And it is really a matter of survival for us. We need to save ourselves, and not, well, human beings, not just the forest and the environment. So our commitment is to convey this message. And we're all in the heart of this climate battle. But the people who are not responsible for climate change, who are affected by it, and we are bearing the toll of it, and we do not, and we shouldn't postpone it until 2030. It is now, right now. Without Russia, without China, well, then we have to bridge the gaps. 100 billion per year. Where are they to support our countries? We are paying for the others. Thank you very much.
Very well said. I think we have time for one more. Okay. This question about almost all of the talks spoke about equitable solutions. And what are some concrete examples we know of where solutions have in fact been equitable? And, you know, are the social safeguards that are typically put in place sufficient?
For safeguard, you want to talk
For me?
about it?
Any of you? I mean, Faustine, I'm sure you have some examples of equitable solutions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. For some practical solution, I mentioned about the natural reserve we created some few years back, which was funded by Jeff, which is Mukurajiswati National Park. Previously, the park has been occupied by some people have been doing mining, illegal mining. But to wake up in the morning and to go and tell them, vacate the forest, we want to restore the forest, it wasn't an option. So we had first to organize those illegal miners into a cooperative, and then we did exploration together with the mining department, and they got another concession and they started mining, and we, through the livelihood program, we supported them to get improved technology for mining because they have been doing artisanal mining. Until then, people stopped to go back to the mining in that forest. So that's one of the practical example. If people don't see the alternative, definitely they will go back and destroy what you are doing in terms of restoration of the nature. Thank you.
Okay. I'm told we need to wrap up, and I think we have the final wrap up will be from FAO, and here we have our online speaker to do the wrap up.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. My name is Peter Chok. I'm working for FAO, and I'm also the Associate Secretary General of the next World Forestry Congress. And I have to tell you that it's very difficult to wrap up such a rich discussion because we learned from the presentations that nature-based solutions offer cost-effective solutions, including for climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity conservation, promote low-carbon economic growth, just to name a few. Forests have a unique role in nature-based solutions, not only because they cover 1/3 of the planet's land surface, but because they have been supporting humanity over several millennia, and we are intrinsically linked with forests, even if sometimes we tend to forget or deny it. And yet again, forests and other ecosystems offer their help to rectify what went wrong due to our unsustainable actions and practices. But they will not do it for us. They can only do it with us. The presentations explained how and why forests are relevant for people, clarifying that our actions on forests impact people and that investing in forests means investing in people. It has become clear that for successful nature-based solutions, we should have solid knowledge and understanding of how nature works. We should have good policies in place, enabling conditions, including a conducive financial environment, and broad consensus and collaboration within and across societies with all stakeholders involved. Nature-based solutions also offer excellent opportunity to work with and learn from indigenous communities, and once again utilize the unique knowledge gained over millennia. We also learned about encouraging national experiences and actions, historic and recent, regional collaborative actions, and also what international organizations can do to support nature-based solutions and countries. It was stressed that there is a need for a transformative transformation that considers both the environmental and social implications of our actions as individuals, as governments, as investors, and if we want to continue to enjoy all the benefits nature provides us with. And that time is running out for climate, biodiversity, and forests, and the critical window of opportunity we have now may be closing soon. The Q&A revealed how important it is to focus on concrete actions on the ground and on people who implement them, and the need for broad collaboration, including on specific examples to include and mobilize the private sector. We also learned about the opportunities what COP26 could provide for countries in the future. And we listened to voices from the forest, and I'm convinced that we also heard those voices. COP26 represents an important step in strengthening nature-based solutions, and we look forward to the final outcomes, noting that what has happened already is quite encouraging. The Secretary General of the 15th World Forestry Congress stressed the opportunity offered by the Congress, which is organized by the Republic of Korea and FAO, to discuss further and enhance implementation of nature-based solutions from a unique forest perspective. And we hope to see you all there at the Congress. Congress. And let's take this opportunity to convert the knowledge and the goodwill into action. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you all. Thank you to our speakers and to our remote audience and to those of you here in the room.